Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another video. My name is Tom. Thanks for joining me here in my office this afternoon. So, we got the letter. This was overnighted to me last week. Actually, can this even be considered overnighting since I knew Thursday that I was going to get this and it just arrived Monday afternoon? I don't know. It doesn't matter. So, three things came in this folder. An envelope to get it back, a UPS, I guess this is overnight, next day air, that's what that is, and two forms. So let's take a look at these real quick. So the first form here is the odometer disclosure statement, and I'll just read through this real quick so that way, because there's a lot of personal information on here that probably better not end up on the internet. So I'll just read this real quick for you guys. Odometer disclosure statement. Federal law and state law, if applicable, requires that you state the mileage upon transfer of ownership. Failure to complete or provide a false statement may result in fines and or imprisonment. Okay. And then it says, I, blah, 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 state that the odometer reading of the vehicle described below is 18,772 no tenths miles, and that one of the following statements is true. Please check only one box that applies. I hereby certify that to the best of my knowledge, the odometer reading What? I hereby certify that to the best of my knowledge, the odometer reading reflects the actual mileage. Sorry, got a little bit ahead of myself. My brain spun out for a second. Sorry. That's number one. Number two, I hereby certify that to the best of my knowledge, the odometer reading reflects the amount of mileage in excess of its mechanical limits. Mechanical limits. Oh, is that like when you cross 1,000,000 miles or so, it just goes back to zero? Okay. And then number three, I hereby certify that to the best of my knowledge, the odometer reading is not the actual mileage. Warning, odometer discrepancy. They checked number one. Okay, so body, four-door hatchback, year 2020, make Chevrolet model Bolt EV, the VIN number of said Bolt EV, and then the case number attached to that Bolt EV. I suppose this was filled out by General Motors, so it should be right. Then it's got my transfer's printed name, transferor, that's a word. Transfer. My address. Okay, so my printed name, my address, listed as the seller, and then my signature, and then the date of statement, which has to match the original paperwork. So I'm going to just check that off screen here real quick. February 18th, 2023. This says February 18th, 2023. Cool. So I'm going to sign that in a second. But let's get into this next form here. So I'm going to put my finger over my address, but this is the customer power of attorney. This form must be notarized. I already found out from the dealership, because I got this form a little bit earlier, that I can sign it. The dealership will notarize it because they're part of this endeavor. So it's okay. I just need to fill this out, get it back in the envelope, and get it back to them. So it says, I, blah, 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 I, Tom, in the city of blank, in the county of blank, in the state of blank, do hereby expressly constitute and appoint General Motors LLC, General Motors LLC USE. I don't know what that means, but I'm appointing them. General Motors is in the name, so I'm going to trust them. The legal case manager or authorized designee, hereafter General Motors LLC, at 2717 Shust, Saginaw, Michigan 48603, as my true and lawful attorney in fact regarding one 2020 Chevrolet Bolt EV with vehicle identification number. Let's at least make sure that these two match. Let's see, ending 5894, 5894. We have a match. Okay, so with vehicle identification number and its title, which vehicle is today being repurchased and returned to General Motors LLC for good and valuable consideration to A, apply for new and or valid replacement title if such is necessary because, for example, the existing vehicle title is subsequently lost or misplaced, and or make corrections, and or B, changes to the title if such is subsequently necessary. Couldn't they have just done like A, B, C, and D? Like A, apply for new and or valid replacement title. B, if it's misplaced or make corrections. And C, if changes are needed. Maybe I should have been a lawyer. And for the record, legalese for me is one of the hardest things to read because my brain clocks out 3 words in. So it just ends up being words. And then I have to like study it for an hour or so. I've already read through this like 5 or 6 times, so I got the general idea of it. It goes on to say, I do hereby give said attorney in fact full power and authority to do everything necessary to ensure that General Motors LLC has a valid title to the vehicle as fully as I could or might do if personally present. My English teacher in middle school would have a field day with this. With full power of substitution and revocation, hereby confirming and ratifying all that said attorney in fact shall lawfully do or cause to be done hereunder. Oh my God, that's a mouthful. And I think that last paragraph was probably, read 4 or 5 times before I actually understood what they were saying. Signed and sealed this 18th day of February 2023. My signature. I don't have a co-signer signature. My address is listed on here. And then they're going to sign, they're going to notarize it at the dealership. So you guys are going to, I'm going to move you guys into a better position here. And you guys are going to watch me sign these because I'm now at a point where this whole process is like public record. And I want to be sure that you guys are in the swing of it. So let me slide this over. You should be able to see enough there that I'm going to sign right here on the line. There's one. And then this one, I have to actually fill out the top. So okay. Signed, dated. The correct box is checked. Oh, by the way, if I didn't specify it on the odometer disclosure statement, it does state that this reflects the actual mileage. 18,772. It sounds about right. I knew it was somewhere around 18 3/4, so 18,750 or so, but that's close enough. So if GM accepts it, I accept it. So you guys are my witnesses here. Putting the forms in the envelope. And what we're going to do is we're going to peel this off. Make sure that that's in there, because last thing we need is for somebody to say, hey, you didn't put it in there. And we're going to make sure both forms are in there, right? Both forms. Yes, 1, 2. The address label, I guess, oh, it's going back to the dealer. It's not going back to General Motors. So, okay, so let's close this. Close it up. And that's it. We have a document or a set of documents that's ready to go back to General Motors. And you guys witnessed me sign them both. I filled the top part out, and hopefully that'll make everybody happy. So, what did we learn from this? We learned that if you're sitting at the dealership and you're talking to the business end of the dealership and you're doing a trade-in where you have to disclose or sign a document that discloses your last vehicle's odometer, do yourself a favor, make sure that it's accurate, take a picture of it. We've done many videos over the last almost year that pertain to this buyback, to the whole recall and everything that happened with the 2020 Premier. I will say that if there's one thing that I'm pleased with is the fact that my brain didn't melt down to the point where I lost my own processes. What I mean by that is, if there's one thing that I learned in all my years of working in IT, it's that everything needs to be in writing, everything needs to be handled as a court case or something that could potentially end up in court, or make sure that you CYA. If you don't know what CYA is, go down below. I'm sure somebody in our community can fill you in. But you have to absolutely make sure that you have all the data and documentation and everything that you could possibly have just to ensure that you're doing things correctly. For me, with the old Bolt EV, with the 2020 Premier, I was worried that I was handing my keys and my vehicle back to the dealer where I bought the 2020 from without any form of documentation or any sort of guidance from anybody. There was no discussion from GM's side that said, oh, okay, why don't you take the vehicle back to the dealership? Here's the person you're going to be handing the keys to. They're going to do a walk around. They're going to take the keys and they're going to park the car on the lot, and that absolves you of liability, responsibility, or whatever. None of that happened. So what ended up happening was I was told that I can go drop the car off. GM told me that much. They gave me a number to call, which happened to be the internet sales consultant's direct line. I called. I left a voicemail. She called me back a few hours later and told me that she was ready to receive the car, and I had made the arrangement then to drop it off before we left for South Carolina. So in California, obviously, I made the arrangement to leave the car in California before we drove across the country in June of 2022. So if I remember the date correctly, it would have been the 14th that I left the car the 14th of June that I left the car at the dealership. And she was like, oh yeah, no problem. Just bring it by. Ask for me when you arrive. And I was like, okay, no problem. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. And I went back home. I cleaned out the car. I got a box. I figured I could take everything that's in the car, just put it in a box and have the movers move it when they show up the following Monday. And which ended up happening. So when I took the vehicle in, sure enough, I asked for her. She showed up. She said, oh, okay, hand me the keys. And she did kind of what they do at rental car companies, where they essentially walk around the car and they try to see if there's any dents or damage or anything. And of course, there wasn't, any absurd damage. I think there was some, some chips, minor chips in the bumper in the front and stuff like that from, you know, just general usage in LA traffic. But other than that, the inside was immaculate. You know, I kept it really clean, and I kind of wiped it down and cleaned out as much as I could. I reduced the Edward factor as much as I could, because when you have, you know, an 8 or 9 year old, and at the time he was 8, so he was there were fingerprints everywhere, you know, food prints, like the window had a handprint on it. That kind of stuff I wiped off, and that's what I meant when I said I reduced the Edward factor. And she walked around, she said, "Okay, great, have a nice day." And I was like, no forms, no signatures. She's like, "Nope, that's it. I'm just gonna take the car, park it in a lot that we have that's reserved for recalls and buybacks, and that's it." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, then have a nice day." And I called my wife and I said, "Hey, come pick me up." And she was there. And I really, like, during that time, I was just sitting on the curb. And I was literally thinking, like, should I just go in and get, like, something that says at least that I handed the car in, like a sticky or a Post-it or a napkin, like a cocktail napkin or something? Nope. No napkin, no sticky, no Post-it, no nothing. My light just died. But anyway, that's it. They took the car and the process started, I guess, at that point. But the moral of the story, and the point I want to circle back to, was that you need to have as much proof and documentation. Even if it seems excessive, just keep it, because you never know. Get all the names of people you talk to. If you can, do everything in writing. All of your transactions should be date stamped, time stamped, and also have, you know, some kind of context to what the conversation was. I prefer text messaging, and with, you know, with the ability of being able to pull all their messages out of messages on the Mac, you can actually have like a printed thread of your side and their side. So it's really easy to then go back and to see what was said, what was done, especially if you have mental lapses like me, where after I hit stop here on this recording, I'm probably going to be like, wait, I should do a recording about this. That kind of thing. But anyway, that's it. I'm going to leave it off there. Go down in the comments if you have any questions. I'm going to get this into UPS's mailbox tomorrow morning when I drop Eddie off for school. And I guess we'll just see what happens. I hope this is it. I really, really hope that this is the last of it. I don't know why I'm so emotional towards this, but I really get very bitter when I get, you know, anything, either text messages or like mail that has to do with General Motors or the dealership in general. I don't know. I guess it's just, you know, what they put their customers through. And to think that I'm not the only one that's going through this, that's the part that makes me really boil, because it's not necessary. Like, you don't have to take your customers and waterboard them the way that I have been over the last 16 months now, plus minus. I'm losing track. It just, that's how bad it is. I'm losing track. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys down in the comments. Have a great rest of the day and have a beautiful week ahead. Until next time, bye-bye.